Hi, I'm Rahul. I'm a second year medical student, and in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the different steps of getting into medical school in the UK. I hope this video is helpful not only for students, but also for parents as well, who have children who want to get into medical school. Let's first have a look at GCSEs. So the minimum requirement for most universities are 6s or 7s in GCSE maths, chemistry, biology, physics, so the sciences, and then English literature. Again, the criteria can vary depending on the university, so it's worth having a look before you apply in year 13. Some universities do weight the GCSEs a bit more compared to others, so if you have really strong GCSEs, so grade 8s and grade 9s, then it might be worth applying to some universities compared to others who look at GCSEs a lot more, so you have a much greater chance of getting into that university and studying medicine. After GCSEs, we come on to A-levels, where you have to take 3 subjects at minimum. So most students take biology, chemistry and maths, as most universities require biology and chemistry as requirements to get into that medical school. However, there are some universities that only require either one of biology or chemistry. So for example, I only took chemistry, maths and computer science. And again, you can have different combinations of A-levels as well. It doesn't have to just be the biology, chemistry and maths combination. For example, again, I took computer science, chemistry and maths, and I had a friend who took physics, chemistry and maths. So you can have those different combinations and still get into medical school. But again, please check the entry requirements for those universities so that you apply accordingly. If you have a specific combination that you want to check, drop it down in the comments and I can let you know if that's suitable to study medicine. Lots of people ask me, are 4 subjects better than 3? And the simple answer there is no, as most universities, they only look at your top 3 subjects, and for most of them, they look at biology, chemistry and 1 other subject. So by taking 4 A-levels, you're spending quite a bit more time on a different subject, whereas you could be spending that same amount of time on either one of these 3 subjects that the universities actually look at. For example, I took A-level further maths in my first year when I wasn't really sure if I wanted to apply to medicine. But then when I decided and confirmed that I wanted to apply to medicine, then I dropped A-level further maths. Another question I get a lot is, how useful is an EPQ? So I actually did an EPQ and I found it okay, but it's not really a deal breaker, as the only place I actually used it was in my interviews as a talking point, as I did it on something medicine related. However, some universities do use the EPQ and can reduce your offer requirements. For example, from AAA to AAB if you get an A or an A star in your EPQ, or from an A star AA requirement to AAA if you again get an A or an A star in your EPQ. I only use my EPQ for my interviews and I think it really helped there. But again, you have to consider how much time am I going to spend on the EPQ and will it actually be worth it in the end if you potentially aren't going to apply to these universities that reduce that grade requirement. Next, we come on to the UCAT exam. This is the entrance exam for medical schools and also dental schools in the UK. This is written in between year 12 and year 13 before you actually apply to medical schools. Based on this score, you can roughly estimate which medical schools you might actually get an interview at and which medical schools to avoid. For example, Bristol tends to be a very high UCAT university, being one of the highest requirements. So if you get an average or below average UCAT, you might avoid universities like Bristol. The UCAT has changed in 2025, where they've removed abstract reasoning. So the maximum score now is 2,700. And the sections that make up this score are verbal reasoning, decision making, and quantitative reasoning. And a banding is made using situational judgment between 1 and 4, band 1 being the highest. So overall, the maximum score you can get in the UCAT exam is 2,700 band 1. Based on this score, you can apply to different universities. For example, Bristol is a very, very high UCAT university. So depending on the score that you get, you might apply to these slightly higher cutoff universities compared to lower cutoff universities. And if you get a slightly more average score or a lower score, you might avoid those universities that are known to have a high UCAT cutoff. For example, King's and Bristol. Next, after you've done your UCAT and you're entering into year 13, you have to submit your UCAS application, where you have to pick your 4 medical school choices and a 5th backup choice, which is non-medical. And then you have to also submit your 3 personal statement questions. So the questions are: why do you want to study this subject or course? How have your qualifications and studies helped you prepare for this course? And your 3rd question that you have to answer is: what else have you done to prepare outside of education, and why are these experiences useful? So with these, you'll be talking about your work experience, any other team activities that you've done, and you have to summarize it all together and show your commitment and enthusiasm for medicine, as this is one of the first things that maybe your interviewers will read or admissions people will read about you. So, how do you actually pick your medical school choices? This requires a lot of research and a lot of time. You need to read through each one of the medical school criterias. Have you met the grade requirements for GCSEs? Are your predicted grades high enough? What is your UCAT score? And you have to also think, could I actually go to this university and be there for 5 years? As you don't want to apply to somewhere that you don't really want to go. So I highly recommend applying to maybe 1 or 2 slightly riskier choices where your UCAT might be on the cutoff, or they're quite high aspirational universities like Oxford, Cambridge, some of the London unis. And then I would recommend applying to a couple safer options that have lower UCAT requirements, where you're assured an interview or you've got a good chance at getting an interview. Next, we come on to interviews, which typically start from November and last all the way up to March or April for some universities. So once you actually get an interview invite, it shows that the university is interested in you being a medical student at their university. So now you just need to convert that interest into an actual offer. And the way that you do this in the interview is you have to show your motivation to study that course, your passion and enthusiasm as well. You need to also show your understandings of the medical career through your work experience, and show what you've seen and the different qualities that you've seen in doctors and how you've demonstrated them. And finally, you have to also be aware of the negative sides of medicine, as this will make you seem a lot more well-rounded and a lot more realistic as well. I'm going to be making a whole separate interview series on this channel. So if you want to watch that, drop a follow and stay tuned for that series. Next, you have to wait for the universities to respond, whether you've got an offer, you've been waitlisted, or you've been rejected by that university. And finally, you have to sit your A-level exams, as all of these offers are dependent on your A-level results. So you need to get those minimum grades to get into that university. So in this video, I described the most common pathway of getting into medical school. Lots of people also take gap years as well, So they sit their UCAT after they do their A-levels, so in that summer, and then apply to universities the following September. So that's a slightly different pathway that some people take if they're unsuccessful in getting in, or if they want to take a gap year. Lots of people also apply via the graduate entry medicine route, where they do a different course for 3 years or 4 years. For example, biochemistry, biomed, or neuroscience, or a variety of different courses, and then apply to medical school, whether it be the A100 program, which is the 5-year program, or the A101 program, which is the graduate entry 4-year program. And this is depending on their grade that they get at the end of their university degree. So whether it be a first or a 2-1, again, the university requirements will vary, and they have their own set of entrance exams, which also includes the UCAT, but also the GAMSAT as well. If you want a separate video on graduate entry medicine, then drop a comment below and I'll make that soon as well. I hope this has helped not only aspiring medical students, but parents as well, to really understand the process of applying to medical school. As you can see, there are loads and loads of hurdles that need to be jumped. For example, GCSEs, UCAT, A-levels, personal statement. So I've actually created a free WhatsApp group where I'll be posting different resources throughout the year to help students and parents through the medicine journey. So if you want to join that, there's a link below and you can join completely for free and ask questions. And thank you for watching.